Watching already. They must have known when I scheduled to go on. Anyway, we're over at John's. This is the final day of the Tucker work, and John's getting close to paint, and I'm going to rub on this a little bit today, and we're going to kind of put the details in it to get it ready to fly. Got to glue the flaps on. I have a couple of touch-ups I need to do, and that's basically what we got going today, just kind of hanging out.
Has anybody got a real nice Gieske Nobler canopy?
Yeah, we're looking at options on making a canopy for the Nobler. What do we got going on here? We got a malfunction already. Yeah. 3 watchers, 1 thumbs up. Thank you. Can you guys hear us okay? Go ahead and talk, John. See if can you hear us?
Yeah, are we here? Are we live? Everybody.
Type it in the chat box. Let us know. We got 2 thumbs up, 4 people watching. Man, you guys are like vultures. Swoop.
Let's see 4 thumbs up on there and an answer. Can you hear us all right? We seem to always have sound problems for some reason. Haven't quite figured out why, but.
Scott Baird says, sounds good. All right. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share. Get the word out that we're over at John's. Here you find Tom Creasy. Tom Creasy, $1.38, buddy. I used some $1.38 paint on this airplane. 50 cents, so they were 50 cents a bottle.
Way to go, Tom. Nice innovation. So, everybody's always looking for a less expensive way to do things, and I'll tell you what, it's not cheap. These paint jobs on these airplanes are pretty expensive. You're using all Randolph dope or Brodak or whatever kind of products, even your base coat, clear coat stuff.
Where's
you
your
go
Windex?
to try to change finishing methods from, say, going from dope to automotive paints can be a rather expensive proposition. They're both expensive. It doesn't matter which kind you use.
Tom Creasy says it's great for beginners and intermediates.
That's good, yeah, because you're probably not going to get a front row finish or a super shiny finish for that matter. They're great for military camouflage type stuff and that, which Tom likes, and as long as he's happy with it, that's fine. That's all that matters. And it works.
All my canopy, all my cockpit paint is Tom Creasy paint.
It works. Tom, have you found, I don't know if you can answer this or not, but if you found how fuel proof is this paint just straight out of the bottle? It's acrylic lacquer probably, or acrylic of some type, which is sort of a rubbery based paint, and I know you have a special process that you do that as far as mixing your paint up goes, but is the straight paint right out of the bottle how, dope isn't 100% fuel proof, it's fuel resistant, unless you go to the automotive clear coat, top coats, that gets to where it's, I guess, close to 100%, and they're epoxy paints or stuff like that, which...
Hey, even death paint is not fuel proof.
Not 100% anyway.
There's only one paint that's 100% fuel proof, and it's called Sunfire by Sherman-Williams.
wasn't Imran pretty close to being? That's really was the original death paint that everybody was using. But I think you had to be some kind of a business to even be able to buy that stuff originally, didn't you?
No, you can get it from House of Color and places.
What we got here is I built this airplane from an old kit, and I didn't use any of the wood in the kit. I recut all the parts and pieces and redesigned my wing and stabbed an elevator and stuff, and it's all built to the same numbers and everything. It's just this is a geodetic or Warren Truss rib wing with a hollowed foam leading edge, so no more starved horse look. Up here, the numbers are all original, to the Gieske Nobler, but I didn't have a canopy. So I said I'm going to cut out the stock canopy and use it. Well, I tried to buff it out and everything, but it's all yellowed. Maybe a smoker owned this kit or whatever, but I've tried cleaning this thing 100 times and I can't get the discoloration out of it. But when you put it on there, I mean, you can literally see in the difference. This is painted this white on the inside here, and you can see it's white. And then when you look through the outside, it's almost a gray white, a brown white, yellowish sort of. You put that on there, it almost looks like a semi-tinted canopy, but it's got that coloration I don't like. Now, I was going to tint this canopy, and we were going to do a tinting video earlier. We even bought the RIT dye and everything, a couple different kinds. We got navy blue, we got graphite, and black. And so we were going to give some tinting a try, and we didn't do it. I ended up cutting that canopy out and putting it on there anyway, thinking I might just like it looking sort of old. But the more I got to looking at it, it's got some scratches in it that I tried to get out, and I can't seem to get them out, like it's been dropped on a hard floor or something, and they're going to show up. I'm just not happy with it now that I've got to this stage. So we're either going to have to pull a canopy and make a plug with this one somehow, or come up with another stock canopy. Now this is not the same as the Brodeck Nobler canopy. It's a different, has to be a blue colored Gieske Nobler style canopy. So I'm looking for one. If anybody comes up with something, let me know. We're going to make a decision today or not. We might still go ahead and make a mold and pull one irregardless, just so we got one somewhere, and then if need be, we'll probably pull 3 or 4 or 5 of them and see what comes out of them. And we got some extras. We'll probably let the extras go somewhere along the line.
Probably use them.
Or may use them, yeah, who knows. It's a good flying airplane, so if we lose one, we'll have some extra canopies already pulled, while we're doing it. It's sort of hard to pull just one, and you're almost certain that you're going to ruin 2 or 3 of them when you don't do this all the time for a living, or whatever. It's a relearn process every time you go to pull canopy. I got a vacuum box already, and all we got to do is make a frame for the plastic, which is pretty simple. And go up and stick it in the oven, watch it droop, sit it down on the thing, and turn on the shop vac and let her sucker down. But normally, when you make these things, I've done it before in the past. I did a few canopies.
It's dig a hole, put a seed in it, spit on it.
Yeah, it'll just grow all by itself. So I don't know if anybody even makes one for a Gieske Nobler because they are a little bit different.
I could sand some more of this. There's still some stuff in there, but there's not enough paint on this to keep sanding. That's part of the finesse deal.
Yeah, you'll have to buff the valleys, so to say. You can hear that when you're sanding along on that. You probably can't hear it on the video, but I can hear it sitting here where he's going over parts where he's already sanded, and then he hits a new section where he hasn't, and you can literally hear the gritty sound. And he's not being light about his sandpaper either. He's putting a little bit of pressure on it. Of course, he's on the fuselage, so.
Well, it is 2000. So. All I'm trying to do is sand this flat. You know, once I get it flat, then I can buff it up.
Yeah.
I posted a picture on Stunt Hanger of what it looks like in the light right now, and it'll really shine if I get this thing sanded down good.
It's still green, even though it's painted, about a week ago?
Yeah.
A week ago. The top coat, clear coats were painted a week ago. So it's still, in all sense and purposes, green paint. Although when you wet sand, you can see it's not loading the paper up at all. It's dry enough that it's not doing that. But he put on about 4 coats of clear on this plane, but he put them on with my HPL V gun, and the gun that we're using shoots out a super fine mist of paint, and it doesn't put very much paint on the airplane. So his 4 coats on his colors is probably more equivalent to
1.5.
1.5, yeah, 2 at the most. Typical clear coats. And the clear was thin 60% or 70%, so the product that was put on the airplane wasn't much.
And there's no paint on this to speak of.
So he's trying to stay off his panel lines and everything else for the simple fact that there's no paint on it, and he'll be burning them in a heartbeat if he's not careful. Did you ever find them stickers that you were going to make decals of?
Stickers I was going to make
Prop stickers?
I searched the web for Hartzell, and I found the decal, their decal, but the file's not big enough to shrink it down to a little one. When you shrink it down to a little one, it looks pixelated.
Really? You think that'd be the opposite?
Yeah, because I printed some out on paper.
I know that happened to me when I was enlarging stuff, but I never thought about it doing when you reduce it.
Like I said, I printed some out on paper, and they didn't look worth a damn. So.
Try it on a piece of photo paper sometime, a piece of glossy paper, and see how it shows up on that. Sometimes that'll make a difference. It's more like printing on decal paper.
Yeah.
I sort of use the photo paper sort of sparingly.
Hey Kim, how you doing from Korea? I think the Kamsamida. Yeah, that's it. I guess that's it. I am okay. Thanks. Welcome. So, as you can see here, I'm still in the sanding business. This is what makes the shine right here. What's that? Never paint gold on your airplane. I'll never do that again. I'll never do that again.
Yeah, gold, silver. They'll have a tendency to show every little itty bitty thing. We've got a friend that we're trying to get up here some weekend. I've neglected to get a hold of him, talk to him here recently, but he's an intermediate flyer, and he needs to move up in the world and get better equipment and see what it's like to fly better equipment and lighter planes and better handling airplanes and get out of the rut we sometimes get into when it comes to, you see an airplane you really like, but it's really not a good airplane, but it looks good. It reminds you of some of your childhood or whatever, but they aren't necessarily a nice flying airplane. Good sport planes, good to go out and hack around and have fun, but if you want to get into a little bit of competition, even in the lower echelons of the competition aspect, local contests or that kind of stuff, and see how you rate with your fellow flyers, and maybe learn a little bit more than you need to. You really need to step up to the plate and get better equipment. There's no ifs, ands, or buts around the fact that there's a lot of airplanes out there that are just mediocre flyers that's been around for a long time. They're very well known. But when it comes to actually going out there and doing a judged type work, they're not all that hot. So, but for now, nostalgia's sakes and for, weekend flying and just hacking around, they're perfectly fine and nice airplanes, and I don't want to trash them by any means. But things have been refined over the years, and nowadays you just got so much better equipment.
And if you like the looks of an airplane, you just have to have the look. Take an SV and make it look like that. Just keep the nose moment the same, the wingspan, change the tips. I mean, that's...
Yeah, you can change the outline of the stab and elevator a little bit. You can change the rudder a little bit. Keep basically the same size, but just, round off the corners or the slopes a little bit different. And your moment arm's the same and everything. You end up with a real nice flying airplane that doesn't look like an SV-11 or 22 or 23 or whatever. It'll be changed just enough that you can sort of call it your own, although it's not technically that, but it's Sparky's right when it comes to that. And he's there's certain numbers that just work. I mean, it's plain and simple. They just work. And they work better than some of the older numbers. I think the problem with the older numbers was the lack of horsepower. They didn't have horsepower, so they ran thin airfoils. And so now you take the modern horsepower and you put it in there with the super thin airfoils and all that stuff, and it equates to just a fast airplane. And you get a little thicker airfoil in that same airplane and put the high horsepower motors in it. And
a thicker airfoil will carry more weight. Now this is what Bob Galdini was talking about in the barbell effect. The thicker airfoil will carry more weight. The bigger motor will pull more weight. But the bigger and thicker you get, the more weight it's going to be. And the longer you have to make it, so you have to make it just a roundhouse.
yeah, it just keeps going around in a big vicious circle, and before you know it, you got an 80-inch wingspan airplane that weighs 18 pounds, and it's yanking you around in a circle. And believe you me, you get out there with a 70-some ounce airplane and you fly it on a regular basis, it's a job. It'll yank you around the circle, and it'll give you a workout like you've never seen. And it can get to where it isn't fun. Like I say, it becomes a job. So you can get in that medium large size range. You know, the 46 size airplane seems to be about a nice round motor size and everything that won't yank you all over the circle, and still get good performance and still be able to compete with it in a very high manner. I mean, there's some guys up there competing with LA-46s and stuff that, you know, are right up there in the advanced and expert classes, and you know, you want to get some kind of powertrain combination that works, is nice and consistent. And I'm sort of an IC guy myself. You know, you got your electric guys and all, that's all good and well. Everybody's got their own thing.
Well, we're having a heck of a time with this stupid camera mount.
Whatever works for you, that's what matters. But these 35 size old airplanes that are out there, these old Midwest kits and stuff like that, they're not bad kits. They're great for sportsman type planes and stuff like that. But
you're not going to be flying at the Nats with a ringmaster or a buster or shoestring or.
You might be able to start off and get up through beginner and intermediate on some of those airplanes, but I doubt you'll go much further than that. Once you hit advanced, you got to start thinking about full fuselage airplanes and better flying airplanes, better powertrains.
If you want to build something that'll carry you, you could take and fly several classes. A Nobler is a perfect example. That's a class. That's the winningest airplane in Stunt history, and you can fly classic with it. And if you have a 52 Nobler, I think you can fly old time.
Yeah, but you get a penalty for flaps. But yeah, it's a Brodex kit. Their 52 Nobler is old time, classic, nostalgia, modern, legal. It's legal for any class you want to put it in, and they've been powered with anything from 29 size motors all the way up to 60 plus motors. I think, what did the
PJ Rowland had a 61.
Had a 61, had a pipe 61 in his. I think that was a Gieske Nobler. Same as this airplane right here. This has got a 32 motor in it. Could you imagine this thing with a 60 in it?
No. Be super nose heavy.
It's,
so now you got a nose heavy, you have to add some tail weight.
There goes that barbell effect thing.
Yep.
Before you know it, you got a your overweight of the wingspan and the wing thickness and everything, and then you start turning into an airplane that's like a Ferrari. It's got tons of horsepower and stuff, but won't turn. It'll mush in the corners. So you have to try to build a nobler that weighs 40 ounces with the 60 in it. Good luck.
happening.
Good luck. We're already going to a 32, from a Fox 35 to an OS 32.
And we give up 2 ounces
And
on
there's
that.
2
spot.
ounces of weight difference. Yep, 2 ounces. And it's hard to overcompensate for that 2 ounces. You got to build the airframe 2 ounces lighter. And I know there's a big controversy, and people ask us all the time, and they question it all the time. Why do you hollow out all your wing ribs? If you're going to put wingtip weight in it, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Why you hollow out all that wood? Well, for one, it's all weight.
You're gonna put it back on.
You
and
say it
paint.
doesn't weigh anything. You can't weigh it on your scale. Well, you can take the total of all those things that you cut out and put on there and say they only weigh a quarter of an ounce. Well, that's a quarter of an ounce. It's a gram here and a gram here and a grain there and a grain there, and it all adds up. Well, that's that much more you can put in on paint for a finish, is how Sparky puts it. But it also is two things. It allows you to put that weight where you want it, not where it's at. Concentrated tip weight on the outboard wingtip set on the CG of the airplane is much better than spread out over the whole span of the wing.
Remember, a body in motion tends to stay in motion unless acted upon by an equal and opposite force. So the heavier the body, the more equal and opposite force you got to have to enact on it, to stop it.
So you build your airplane with all the wingtips solid and all the ribs solid and all that stuff. Then you still got to turn around and add 3/4 to an ounce of tip weight to it, even after all that, to make the airplane fly. It seems sort of counterproductive. But it's just tacking up on the total weight, you know, and there you end up with a 50-ounce nobler instead of a 40-ounce nobler.
Now,
And
there
contrary to
There is an exception to this rule, John. If you have 3-pound punk wood, I would just leave the ribs solid. But 3-pound punk wood,
yeah, good luck finding it.
yeah, good luck finding it.
It's that's sort of unobtainium. Yeah, I could see on a situation like that, you know. And some say you can build too light. Well, I've never seen one built too light.
No, it can't be done.
I don't know how many hundreds of airplanes I've built over the years, and I've never built one where I considered it too light. Paint, I mean, on a 35 size airplane on up, if you're doing a traditional dope finish, is really hard to get under 10 ounces. I mean, it's not impossible. We're doing it. We're doing 6-ounce finishes. But you have to stick to a really strenuous regime to, I think, to do that. And you know, everybody starts doing this double covering thing. You know, I want my airplane puncture resistant. I want to do it this. I want to do it that. Well, you're going to pay the price doing that. You know, everything you add adds weight. Doesn't come back off. When you start painting your airplane, from the moment you start painting your airplane, pretty much all they do is gain and never drop. Unless you do some major fixed weight component that's lighter, like the motor change or something like that. And that's one of the reasons why there's certain aircraft motors out there that were probably more than fantastic for our RC engines, that would probably be more than fantastic for our use. But the reason why the Fox was so popular, and some of these motors were so popular, was the weight of the motor. And that was a whole key, was motor weight. So they didn't use some of these other motors because they weighed 2, 3, 4, 5 ounces heavier than the next available used motor that you know your more or less top echelon guys were using, you know. And it was to get that barbell effect down, you know. Lighter motor, lighter drivetrain, those are all fixed weights that you can't change very easily, you know. You can build your whole airplane out of 10-pound wood and make it lighter by building it out of lighter wood. Well, you can't do that with your engine and stuff. And, I mean, it's been tried. I mean, I think some of the guys have even taken 40 size motors and milled and drilled and ground and everything else on them, made 60s out of them, just trying to get a high horsepower, low weight.
Trying to cheat so they could use 15,000 wire.
Yeah, well, yeah, that too.
Back in the day when it was judged by wire size, was judged by motor size.
Very true. You know, they had the guts of a 60 and a 40.
Well, there's a thing that's not ever talked about is when you guys get a kit like a Nobler or even this Tucker or whatever, was it really the same airplane? Was the motor the same? They say, well, we used a Fox 35. No, it wasn't a Fox 35. It was a Duke Special.
Yeah, or Vico 45 or some obscure Super Tiger 46 or... and a lot of times the plans were changed to fit in a box. You know, the original airplane, maybe it had a 56-inch wingspan instead of 54-inch wingspan. Well, that's a significant difference. And the airplane will fly different. But they didn't tell you that back in the day. They didn't tell you about contest grade wood. They didn't tell you about going through all your wood and looking at it and seeing what it weighed and before you build it. And you know, as everybody knows, the old die crunch kits and everything were notorious for having pine in them, or what could be considered pine.
You can't build light airplanes without light wood, period.
No. It all starts with the first piece of wood.
Wonder where I heard that before.
I mean, besides you, there's this, I mean, that's an old thing back, it goes way back at, if you looked at how some of these guys built, and now taken for granted, that was back in the days when you could get light wood. And they were still taking every piece that they could get and hollowing it out and lightening it up. And any piece of hardwood was, if there was an excess bit of hardwood in it that really wasn't necessary, it got ground out of it. Even as much as the little post that goes in your landing gear blocks for wing mounted landing gear, a little vertical piece of maple or whatever that you're using in there for your upright, for your landing gear wire to go up into. You had a little knob on each end of it just for gluing surface, and then the center of it was whittled way down. How much weight did that save? Not
Nothing.
very much. You might not even been able to weigh it. But overall, doing that in every part of the airplane, there's ounces. And they were using 4-pound wood or some really, really nice wood back in the day.
Hey, you boys over there putting fingernail marks in my wood?
Yeah, trying to see how hard it was, you know, because they needed a hard piece but a light piece. You know, try to check grain. You know, it holds true. You need to look at your grain in your wood. It would pay everybody to go look at some kind of a lumber website and look at how they cut wood and how wood is made quarter grain, and you know, how it's cut out of the log, and you know, how a curved tree gets a piece cut out of it, and how that curve goes into the wood that's cut out of it, and all that. And then they tell you your different grades of wood. And SIG had this thing out, ABC grain, Boss's grain chart. And I keep this posted on in my shop, and it shows you what the
They can't
different
see it.
grains of the wood look like. I can't get it off here. It's sort of taped on.
They're watching me rub right now.
Well, they can hear me. But Sig used to put this out, and it's readily available on the websites. But it was just a little picture description that showed A, B, and C grain wood, and it showed you a little black and white picture of what the grain sort of looks like. Now, there's grains in between that, and one piece of wood can have a certain kind of grain on one end of it, another kind of grain on the other end of it. It just depends on how that tree was that they cut it out of. So there's all sorts of in-betweens that, and not every piece of wood is exactly A, B, or C grain. It can be a combination of all of them, actually. And you can take wood. I've taken wood, and I still do it today. Don't get me wrong. When I'm selecting wood to build an airplane out of, I'll balance a piece of wood and see which end of that wood is heavier.
Well, I think I showed on one of my videos where I cut a flap out of one side and a flap out of the other side of the same piece of wood, and they were a ½ ounce different.
Yeah. Yeah, so the weight difference in this one piece of wood can be tremendous. It's practice, it's experience, it's, to look for this kind of stuff, and after you've done it for a long time, it comes sort of a second nature to you. You automatically just sort of do it unconsciously. But typically the best way, is, if you balance in a piece of wood, say a 36 or 48 inch long piece of wood, and you balance it, and you got one heavy side and you got one light side, well, you might take the heavier side of it and cut your outboard wing ribs out of it, and the lighter side, the inboard wing ribs, maybe, if it's a good, nice piece of wood. Say it's a nice total weight piece of wood that's a 4.5 pound piece of wood. You can use the whole thing, but that way you're putting grains more on the outside, not pounds, not grams, on the outboard side. But if you're using a 6 pound piece of wood and using the heavier stuff, well, you're using too heavy a wood to begin with. The only option you got outside of that, if you can't find the light wood, is you got to use less wood. And that means cutting out ribs, doing away with things. I mean, you can go to, I'm not so sure this actually works, but go to a thinner wood.
No. Hunt says it does, but...
On paperwork, yeah, it does.
Yeah.
Because a thinner piece of wood, but a 16th inch piece of 5 pound wood and a 32nd inch piece of 5 pound wood is still both 5 pound wood. Just one's thinner.
Now, Hunt's idea is you have a piece of 5 pound wood that's a 16th, you can use a piece of 10 pound wood that's 32nd. And I don't think that works. I mean, he can do it any way he wants, but...
It doesn't sound quite right to me, but Bob's got his own way of doing things, and he's a good builder and a good finisher and all that stuff, so how he does it is his way. There's always more one way to skin a cat. But the point of the matter is to start off with good quality stuff to begin with, and try to build as light as you can for the overall frame. And that way it just enables you to put weight where you want the weight, not where your wood and airframe deem it has to be. In the long run, you'll end up with a better flying airplane.
Okay, you're on camera now. They're probably tired of watching me rub.
Well, Rubbing plays a part because you're watching your technique. How's he doing this? When it comes to rubbing, rubbing isn't just rubbing. If you watch him, he rubs in a spot. When he does that, it builds up heat, and it's the heat on some of these, the combination of the heat and the material you're using that causes this polishing action to come into effect. You can see guys that literally took power polishers on cars and stuff, and they literally burnt the paint on edges or sharp edges of points, the top of the edges of fenders and stuff like that, where they stayed on it too long and got it too hot and it burnt the paint.
What you're trying to do with rubbing is you're getting it hot enough to move molecules, to melt the plastic together.
You really don't see it, but it does get warm. And then you use that in a combination with different compounds, So you're doing the same thing even with a coarse compound. You're rubbing and generating heat and causing that friction in there and the grit to work, and everything comes together, and then switch to the next thing. You do the same thing. You're taking the scratches from before and moving them to a finer scratch. And keep doing that until you finally get up to...
Until you get tired of it.
You get tired of it, yeah, you abandon the finish. It's really hard to finish one. I mean, really, truly finish one. I don't know that I ever have. I think I've gotten close, but...
That turned out better, huh?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the feel of this thing opposed to the areas that aren't done yet is like night and day. But it's still, even though it looks finished, it's still got 2 or 3 more jobs to do on it.
In several settings. I'm going to go ahead and put the line back on and shoot the clear on there today.
You got a couple little spots. Not bad. Overall, it's pretty nice.
I got about 25 hours in on it already.
Yeah, I bet you got every bit of that in on it. And what all this wet sanding's doing is taking all that orange peel down to it and getting the surface level. Your wet sanding and stuff does that to an extent, but if you don't have any paint on it, and you probably got to sort of stop a little before you think you should stop.
Yeah, you'll burn right through it.
You burn through your clear coat, and then you got to sort of leave a little bit of the orange peel on there, and then try to use the buffing action to buff in the low spots to look like the high sections, which is sort of a trade-off.
I've been doing this so long that, I can just about tell when, I'm not using any paint. So, like when I stopped here, it could use some more sanding, but I don't dare.
No. One thing about dope, and people don't realize this, is that just the bare paint without clear on top of it will come up to a shine every bit almost as good as this. The clear adds depth. It's like looking at a grand piano or something, it's super shiny and the finish looks an inch thick on it. Well, that's what you get with clear. Without clear, you get shine, and it'll look pretty doggone good. And you can bring that shine up there pretty nice. It won't have that depth. That's the only difference. That your color dopes are the same dope as your clear. It's just got pigment in it. It's the same base. Using the same thinners. You know, all basically color is clear dope with pigment added to it. And that's
Okay,
about
we got a
it.
question here that's probably a pretty valid one. It says, Sparky, we need a set of weights of each part of the plane to help us give an idea how much parts should be. Well, your total landing gear, it doesn't matter whether it's a big airplane or a classic airplane, that's wheels, wheel pants, wire, or the struts, is going to be 3 ounces. It's just the way it is. I mean, it's a fixed weight. It's 3 ounces. Elevator stabilizer for a big plane, we haven't been able to build them any lighter than 3 ounces. These smaller airplanes should be around anywhere from 1.75 ounces to 2.5 ounces.
That's without the finish.
Yeah, without finish.
That's through the tissue, but no color.
Let's see, if a completed fuselage on an airplane this size of my Tucker should be around 6 ounces. The wing finished with flaps, no covering on it, but I can give you a weight with covering, but flaps and the entire wing for this airplane I think was 9 ounces.
Yeah.
And then you put the tissue on it, you're at 10 ounces with dope on it and tissue. So you want to keep your airframe around 25 ounces.
Yeah, no hardware in it.
No,
No motor tank or anything like that.
the single biggest weight of your airplane is the dope. It's you can add up heavier than the engine real quick.
Now we say 10 ounces is about an average for a nobler size airplane. I think most guys are probably doing 10-ounce paint jobs. It's a smaller airplane. You start getting into your 60 size airplanes, and it goes up. 10 ounces is hard to achieve because there's so much surface area.
Where's my smoker? You see that hanging around?
Doesn't look like much, but there is. And you say, well, gas is off and this and that. Really, it doesn't gas off a lot. And you don't sand any of it off. Believe me, if you think you're going to go take an airplane and you're going to sand 1/4 ounce off of it, good luck.
Yeah, good
You'll be
luck.
sanding it down to the wood, and then you might not even have it off at that point in time.
You can take an airplane. I'm going to campaign my XL another season, but the paint is just atrocious. And I'm going to doctor it up as best I could, but that airplane weighs 58 ounces. If I were to strip every bit of paint off of it and all the covering and paint it back exactly the same, the airplane will be 60 ounces.
Yeah.
It don't matter.
There's that weight you can't get off of it. It's the weight that soaks into the wood, and it just never comes out. You can't get that off. And the way dope works is it's got a mechanical bond and a chemical bond. So every coat you put on top of it soaks into the coat below it. It softens it up and makes a chemical bond to the coat underneath of it. That's what makes it so nice, actually, that you're not relying upon just a mechanical bond, which is the scratches in the surface, locking the next coat on.
Your first coat of dope is going to soak down into the wood. Then your second coat of dope is going to soak down into the wood plus stick to the first coat of dope, and so on and so forth.
Absolutely, and it just keeps going up from there. And taken for granted, I have seen an airplane lose about 1/8 ounce of weight gassing off, and it was a really heavy finish on the airplane to begin with. But that's not normally the case.
Now you guys saw that this was shiny. I did the other side, and I'm sanding it with 2,000 grit sandpaper. Now this will probably, it won't be this go around, but by the end of the summer, it'll be sanded with 5,000 grit and polished again. Sanding is what gives you the shine, and I'm going to show you here that I've ruined it. Looks like, oh God, I've ruined it.
Yeah, you'll make that surface look all milky white. And when you go to polish it, that milk will come out of it. That's just your little scratch marks that you're putting in it, leveling the surface out one step further.
Now, the first sanding on this, I didn't have any 1,000 grit. Believe it or not, there's some spots on here that could use 600 sandpaper, but there's no paint on it to do it. The first sand out was with 1,500, and now we're down to 2,000. But you notice that right in here it got flat, it got dull. But when I bring it up here, you'll notice a big difference. When you're looking at this, you can see a bunch of shiny spots. You want to try to sand all those shiny spots out of it. However, if you don't have any dope on it, you ain't going to get them all out. So
yeah, that's all your orange pills. Those little shiny spots are all the low spots where the surface isn't flat. On a car, they can really sand like heck on it because you got a lot thicker paint on it. But on this stuff, working with so little bit of paint.
Remember, my paint diet is 1 quart of clear dope per airplane. That includes the big airplanes too. That's for substrate and for top coat. And if you've gone over that, you got a heavy airplane. You got a heavy finish. And stay off the death paint because that stuff is super heavy. Looks good, kinda.
Oh yeah, Insta Shine.
You won't have to do any of this business.
Wait until you have to repair one of those airplanes that's got Insta Shine all over them. Dope underneath, or the dope gets underneath it and starts peeling off in big sheets like a snake shedding its skin. That can happen because it's just a chemical bond, or just a mechanical bond, not a chemical bond.
Okay, you guys see that I've basically ruined that. That's what it looks like. Oh no.
Wow, look at all them scratches you put in that.
Yeah, let's see if they can see it. Not really. Okay, I've dulled up the nose, as you see here. It's all dull here. And each time you do this, it gets shinier.
Yeah, and you start getting more level. Sanding in between your coats of paint is essential to me. It helps tremendously on making the surface flat. The quicker you can make your surface flat and smooth, the better.
When you start, of this you'll have to do.
Yeah, the less elbow grease you'll have to use in the very end, because your orange peel, as they call it, which is just microscopic, and we're using a real fine shooting spray gun, and it's just a step up from an airbrush actually, and it really puts the paint down thin, and the orange peel effect is 1/100th of the size of what you get on a car, let's say, or maybe even smaller than that. It's pretty doggone smooth. But to get that, it's all in the sanding. It's the sanding between every single coat. I can't emphasize that enough. All you're doing is, when you're doing all that sanding from the base up, you're putting on some paint and you're taking half of it off, and what the half you're leaving on the airplane is staying in the low spots. And you're building those low spots up to come in contact with the high spots, so you got a flat surface, and that's your smooth surface. That's your shine.
Yeah, I really didn't do enough sanding on this, but
I did more sanding on this Nobler probably than you did on that one.
yeah,
And this is just blocker coat. This is 2 coats of white tinted clear. It's got 1 tablespoon of white. It might even be a teaspoon. And whatever the quart of clear that I had from the start of the airplane, I started off with a full quart of clear. I poured it into half of it in 2 containers, and one was for this part of the finish, one's for the very top coat.
which you haven't used
Which
yet.
I haven't used yet. Yeah, I'm still using the original half a quart thinned 100% clear dope, and I just added a spoonful of white to it and shook it up, and I call it a blocker coat. It just tries to make the airplane one solid color, and I like white because it makes your colors brighter. If you left your airplane gray or carbon black or whatever, it'll work the same. It's just that you'll have a dark undercoat to your plane, and it'll make your colors look deeper and darker in color. But the sanding in between them on all those coats, and I have literally sanded between all these coats. And when I started putting this blocker on, I switched from 320 paper to 500 paper, which made it even finer yet. And now that I've got these blocker coats on, they almost look like the top coat of paint. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
It's that smooth. There's that little orange peel in it. Now, hopefully, and I'll sand this again. This has just been shot on here. I'll sand this again before I put my final color coat on it. Next big step is all this stuff here, which, needless to say, is down the road a little bit. I got to get this on before I go to color and that kind of stuff, because I got to blend all this in yet. But yeah, we say, it's all in the sanding. It really is. And you think you're sanded. That's why people are using monocoat and everything like that, and base coat, clear coat stuff, because they don't want to sand. Well, contrary to popular belief, you still got to sand if you use that stuff. You just have to sand quicker. This stuff, dope sands better the longer it's set because it gets harder. Automotive clear coat, you got to sand that stuff within hours after putting it on, or else it's gonna be so hard you can't sand it. But dope, really, the longer it sets, the better it sands, and this has probably been setting for a week or so. It's more than ready to sand, but I'm gonna finish the cockpit first, which will be another week probably before I get this done. Before I start thinking about colors, but that'll give me some time to look at some paint jobs and whatever and try to figure something out.
You're going to have to come over so we can do it on the plotter.
Yeah.
Get the measurements, everything.
Lay it all out. That's sort of the hard part. A lot of times I'll go out in the garage and I'll just start painting. And it just leads into something. But right now I've sort of got one of those painter's block, or like a writer's block. You can't think of the next paragraph to write about. But I see this airplane, as much as I look at it, I'd like to make it sort of similar to the original Nobler, but then again, I want to make it different. And what do you do?
Well, you're caught. Tell them why.
I'm caught because of weight. I can't put any more paint on. Not color paint. This plane will end up being, for the most part, white. And it'll have some accents put on it that are airbrushed on there that have little or no paint in them. And your numbers, of course, and some striping. The striping won't add anything to it, but you know, the ink lines. But for the most part, yeah, I wanted to hit 40 ounces. Well, I'll be lucky if I hit 44 ounces. That's 4 ounces. That I don't know where it came from. I mean, we were on par of being there. And this airplane, believe you me, I mean, Sparky's been around here for the onset of this whole plane, and he knows this for a fact of what's gone into this. This airplane doesn't have but double-aught silk span on the whole thing. There's no medium weight silk span on it. It's got 4 coats of base clear before the tissue went on it. 3 coats or 4 coats on top of the tissue. And this is all out of this half a quart of thin dope, or full quart thinned dope. And I just keep adding thinner to it, adding thinner. Don't ever add any more clear, just thinner. And here's where we're at. You know, it's pretty nice, but it's still, I wish I'd used Japanese tissue on it now instead of double-aught silk span, which might have been a little bit lighter. Maybe it wouldn't have come out a little bit lighter, but probably for the most part was my wood selection to begin with. Was not the lightest wood in the world. I used what I had on hand, which, you know, I tried to pick some of the lightest stuff that I had, and I mean by lightest, I'm talking like 5-pound wood. There's very little sub 5-pound wood in this airplane, so was one of the reasons why we went for the geodetic Warren Truss wing thing, was try to lose a rib or two. And
well, you gained an ounce by the foam leading edge.
Yeah, gained some weight there. I mean, the wing tips, the top blocks, and all that stuff are either molded or they are hollowed to the nth degree. The cowling is hollowed. It's less than 1/8 of an inch thick. These wing tips are 1/8 or less thick. Everything's been just totally, my wheel pants are wood wheel pants, and they are hollowed to the nth degree.
What they weigh, 7 grams a piece? Quarter ounce?
No, it was 3/4 of an ounce, I think, for both of them.
3/4 of an ounce?
I think, wasn't it?
No, it was lighter.
No, a half an ounce.
Half an ounce for both.
For both the wheel
That's
pants.
7 grams a piece.
7 grams a piece. So that's wood carved fiberglass wheel pants.
When you put the fiberglass on, wipe it off.
Yeah. Yeah. Finishing resin, put the glass on, take some tissue, toilet paper, whatever, and wipe everything off of it. Let it dry. Sand it a little bit. Some people will put another coat on there. You don't really need to. Just sand it and start primering. It will take primer. You'll fiddle around trying to fill that weave of that fiberglass on there forever using dope. So it's much quicker, easier just to use primer. And those are some of the areas that you will have to leave some of the primer on. You can't sand it down to nothing without seeing the weave.
I'm going to go ahead and put that line back on, and then start taping that off to get ready for blowing that red on there. Give me your short wood ruler.
It's in this bag right here.
And this is what I forgot. I forgot the pen. That's why I had to go back.
Oh. Purdle.
Forgot the pens. Where's that plastic piece? That round fuselage plastic piece?
It's in this bag of stuff. Some will wear.
Yeah, and you're gonna burn through the lines in spots. Just the way it is, but it's not a big deal. I wish we could show you how I'm gonna fix that in the garage, but we don't have any reception out in the garage.
Let's see, that's not the one we used, though, I don't think.
This will be fine.
Is it straight?
I don't know. I only got to go 3/8 of an inch.
Well, then it's probably straight enough for that.
Of course, I ended up short.
This is just a bag of C-temp templates of all various kinds, sizes, widths, all for inking, cockpit detail stuff.
We showed them that last week.
Yeah, you guys have seen all this. I use 64th inch plywood with tape on it, plus the C-temp stuff with tape on it. And it's really nice for working around tight corners. You know, the plywood won't go around those tight corners. The C-temp works great. Might be a little repetitive on some of the stuff we say, but it's all meant in good spirit.
Well, let's fix that.
You got a couple in some of these corners.
Yeah, but
It's on the other wing, I know.
right there's one. But I'm just, when I airbrush the clear, I'm just gonna, and that's it. You know, I'm not shooting any more coats of paint on this.
No, it's just all spot paint now. It's really starting to work down to a finish. You can start seeing it getting flat. You're flat up here, and then you still got some little teeny, ever so fine.
There's some right here too, but I can't. You don't have any rubbing compound. It's I can't bring any heat out in it right here. I got some right here. Polishing just without.
That's coarser.
Right. For hand rubbing, I got to use that. For polishing, you got to use I can't bring the heat out in it.
Yeah.
Because if you look right here, it's dull. You know.
Mm-hmm.
I'll do that at the apartment. I just. That's an earplug.
That's what it looked like. I thought, man, what the hell's he got shoved in that Venturi on that thing?
Just an earplug.
It is time. Lots of time.
Nah.
But believe it or not, if you're doing this by hand, this is something that you can do while you're sitting around watching the boob tube. You know, that typically don't get out the air-powered or electric-powered buffing wheel and sling stuff all over your living room, or you'll never hear the end of it from the other half. But you can certainly sit down and hand rub, and even wet sand for that matter. You put down a moving pad and a couple towels, and you're good to go.
Just remind me that it's It's there. That is a fine line.
We really don't pre-plan any of this stuff for this weekend things. I mean, it's all sort of just whatever happening's happening. It's not like we made out a script or anything for any of this stuff. We don't.
We don't know what we're doing anyway.
It's see this. I got a spot on top of this wing where the paint spurred out of the vent hole of the paint gun when I was shooting it on here and dropped on there, and now I'm trying to get that leveled out. It's got a few pinholes in it. So I haven't had a problem with in the past, but for some reason here, these past couple airplanes I've done is some pinholes. Now it may be attributed to the fact that I'm thinning my dope down so doggone much. There's not enough body to it
Well, that didn't turn out perfect, but
to fill.
it'll be close enough. I need a couple pieces of tape. I'm gonna put a piece of tape there and a piece of tape there to remind me
Where?
I gotta shoot some clear. Clear and clear. And if that's all you got to do, you're doing great.
Yeah, you're lucky. I told him to run through his whole airplane and get his whole airplane wet sanded down and buffed out the first time or two before he does this, but he likes to do it a little bit different than I do. That's totally up to him. I mean, that's fine.
As long as it comes out okay.
Yeah.
Let me see that tape. Got any paper down here, or is it
Right
upstairs?
behind you.
Aha.
When you're doing this buffing and stuff, you're gonna do it just like you did when you were wet sanding in your early stages. Stay off the edges and stay off the cap strips. You can do them at the final little bit.
Now, I don't know whether I showed this or not on the web anywhere, but I had a little faux pas in the apartment where I just completely trashed this leading edge here. And big hole, size of a dime. That happened on the edge of the coffee table. Well, because it's dope, it's easily repaired. And how I'm going to do that is, I'm just going to tape this off. That's a Navy trick, by the way, what I just showed you. Fingernail on the corner and cut it back at a 45. Or you can use a razor blade to tear from, but put your fingernail in the corner and rip it back.
You'll see guys paint cars doing that, and they'll use a putty knife or a
Razor blade.
spatula, you know, for Bondo spatula or something like that when they're taping the car off.
That's what I need here for this corner. You got razor blade or X-Acto? I can't get my thumbnail on this in the right spot. Yeah. So you just take the razor blade, put it right on the corner. That's perfect.
Yep.
Can't get any better than that. And so we'll tape that off, paper this off, and I'm going to shoot a little white in here because this airplane is Miss Ashley red, but it's not because there's no paint on it. And if I just paint red over the top of that other red, it'll get redder. So I gotta kind of prepare that surface by lightening it up and bring it back down to this color, if that makes sense. At home, I would probably do it as John says, you know, sand my whole airplane and fix it because I can do it in one day. But because of my situation, I have to kind of work as I go. And I'm going to prep this airplane to fly today. So in case we get some nice weather.
There was an email that was sent out here about some guys going flying today.
We can get a test flight on it.
Not quite warm enough for me. I'm not ready to get out there yet.
No, I'm not going out in 40-degree weather either.
40-degree weather's too cold. But we're looking forward to the time change. Our club normally at the time change, that's when we switch from our indoor meetings to our outdoor meetings. And it's at the field from then on out. So that's sort of what we do about starting to fly.
Scott's going to have him a classic this year.
Yeah. He'll be flying in another venue.
Okay, foam pad, where's it at?
Didn't you have another piece of tape on this back here?
No. It's over there.
There.
Where's the foam pad?
Sitting on the floor over here.
Well, Tommy's glued in, so we won't be ejecting.
You can sure tell the difference on the bottom of it.
Yeah, I haven't done any work at all on the bottom. No work at all on the bottom. That'll be next week. Take a week to get it down and then,
We'll be doing this again next weekend.
yep. Well, my plan was, there's just not enough time. My plan was to get this done and start working on my ringmaster, but
He comes over here on the weekends, you know, and he's got, you know, personal stuff to take care of, laundry and grocery store shopping and all that junk to do, and tends to do that on the weekends. You take that into effect, and you come over here, and he doesn't want to make this like work. And he comes over here and spends 2 days. And he goes back to work on Monday. It's like he never ever took a day off work. I don't blame him.
oh, I forgot. Today is my brother's birthday. I better send him a
Brother's
text.
birthday.
Oh, I can't. I'm filming. Send him a text afterwards. My birthday's in 5 days. You know, I could fix this screw up there. This gold line that wasn't straight.
Yeah.
I don't think I will, though. Maybe.
We just a teeny bit of that black showing. That might, it might. Where you're gonna get the problems at is on that, because all that stuff that's where that damage was done is gonna be a different color. If you don't do something to make it like the base of this.
It'll be fine. I always say it. It'll be fine.
Yeah, we hear you. It will be though. It'll be fine. A little bit
Here,
at a
put your
time.
finger on this or whatever.
You mean do something instead of just sitting there like a bump on a log?
I'll tell you what would be a disaster. I won't even mention it.
Don't go there. You know better than that. God, that just tears me up. Totally tears me up.
Okay, we're ready for the touch-up on that. And this, we got a, I'll show you. Let's see, is it the inboard or outboard? The outboard. Let me show you how thin this paint is. We'll do a close-up of this. Now, I've sanded this. And if you look right there on the edge, right there, we've sanded through to the primer or the base. So I've got to dust that with an airbrush and then shoot a little clear on it, a couple coats of clear, and then re-sand it out. So there's gonna, and you know, when I rub it some more, I might get another spot or so, whatever.
Yeah, you just have to touch them up as you go along.
You know, how much are you gonna chase this paint job? And like, you know, this is not a Nats airplane, it's only a classic. You get appearance points at the Nats for classic. And it's a matter of personal pride. I don't want to take an airplane to the field that looks like a rat. What?
That's the way we were brought up.
Yeah.
It is a personal pride thing. I like things that look nice. Plain and simple. I just like things that look nice.
I can hardly bring myself to bring an airplane to the field that hasn't at least been started to be rubbed. You know?
Yeah, I don't ever take one out in primer or just base coat color. In fact, I don't like to handle them even at that stage because some guys will go out and test fly 'em. Do I want to put that work into the finish if the plane's a turd? Well, you probably should have known if it's going to be a turd before that stage, before you started building it, you know, because pretty much airplanes have been proven And if it's overweight or whatever, you know it's going to be a turd, throw a utilitarian paint job on it and go beat it up.
If it's light, straight, and rigid, it'll fly good.
Yeah. There were some guys asking about weights of airplanes a while back, not too long ago, you know, about, well, I think we got into that a little bit earlier, but
Heavier the better.
people adding ballast to their airplanes, or so-called adding
Yeah.
ballast to their airplanes to make them fly better. I find that hard to believe, but it might penetrate in the wind better. You know, a little bit heavier airplane might penetrate in the wind better. A thinner airfoil penetrate wind better. At the essence, you have to fly it faster. And then when you start flying faster, you know, you got to look at it like this. You know, what's your happy spot? What lap times do you really like to fly at?
6 seconds, but I can't pull a McHenry.
I mean, I don't like 6 seconds. It's too slow to me. But 5 seconds is too fast. You know, 5.1, 5.2, 5.3, sort of a sweet spot for me that I like. Seems to work with my reaction time or whatever pretty good. But I start getting 5 or below. It's quick for a stunt pattern. You tend to rush the pattern. Now, a really good pilot, you know, a David Fitzgerald or Brett Buck or those guys, or Matt Newman or Kenny Stevens, you know, they can fly in a wider envelope of speeds because they're just flat-ass better flyers. You know, you got to sort of suck it up a little bit every now and then and say, well, I'm not that good. I'm not a Kenny Stevens. I'm not Brad or Fancher or any of those big boys. At least not yet. I would like to try to be, but I probably never get there. In all
You know
reality,
why you'll never get there?
I don't put the time in.
Right. It takes dedication to go out there. Like Billy, he'll get a sandwich and a half a gallon of water or whatever, and go out there at 6 o'clock in the morning and won't leave till it's dark.
Yeah. Flight after flight after flight after flight. And they really don't rest hardly any. They literally come down, land, fuel it up, go back up. They might tweak a little, maybe take enough time to tweak a little something or whatever and go right back up again. I get burnt. I guess I'm not dedicated enough. I'm not really trying to be world champion. I'll never get there. I started too late in life, and I'm old fart now, and my reaction time and stuff's slowing down. And if I can just go out there and have fun, and you know, I still moved up a rating. You know, I went from, you know, I went through the skill classes, beginner, intermediate, advanced, and I recently sort of started flying a little bit better and got basically bumped up into expert, which was the low man on the totem pole in that class.
You'll be there for a while.
To move up from there, I'll have to bear down, and it may never happen, but you know, we'll give it a shot. You know, I'm not going to go into that class thinking that, well, I don't ever have a chance in hell. I'll try. But I'll still not ever get up to the things, you know. I mean, there's guys that's burnt whole skids full of fuel practicing for the Nats. I could never do that. I can't physically do it with body-wise, and I can't monetarily do it because I just don't have that kind of money to go out there and
Cost $1 a flight on a big airplane.
probably costs more than that. I mean, if you think of wear and tear on all the stuff, you know, parts and pieces, and you're just talking fuel costs.
Right.
7-8 ounces of fuel a flight. Well, you got electric now coming into play on all this stuff.
That costs $5 a flight.
I'm sure it's not really any cheaper. I don't think it's any cheaper to go electric than it is to go.
More expensive. The batteries cost way more, and they don't last that long. And you got to charge it. So how much electricity is your
Yeah, you got
house
to take all
burning?
that into account, and the extra time that it takes to charge up your battery packs and all that stuff. So I sort of like to grab a bottle of fuel and take off and go fly. Um,
Well, it looks like your microphone has burned up the batteries.
gone.
Well, it's not gone yet, but it's got one bar. So I think we're going to end it. We've been on an hour and a half. We'll probably come back after lunch, after we have this painted, and finish it up. Because I'm going to glue the flaps on and put the tube in for the fill tube and get the tank mounted permanent and get it ready to go. So we'll see you later on this afternoon. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and share the videos. Hey, and I apologize about Stunt Hanger being down yesterday. We just had a DDoS attack from Southeast Asia and Africa. I think I've got it sorted out. I had to ban some more IP addresses this morning, but you know, that's 6,000, there's 7,000 IP addresses that I had to work on. So that's quite a bit.
That's the second time in a week.
Yep. All right, guys. Thanks for watching. See ya.